So the Walmart bin gave me The Batman, which is the most recent iteration of a character portrayed on film for many years by many actors. So I thought, why not watch all of Batman? Every big screen appearance of the Caped Crusader, starting with this 1943 weekly serial produced by Columbia Pictures, starring a guy named Lewis Wilson as Batman. Unfortunately, this first Batman movie is straight up American World War II propaganda with incredibly offensive racist stereotypes and slurs. It's kind of disturbing to think that this was written for children, and they would have come out of the theater after watching this saying and thinking a whole lot of awful things about Japanese people. I watched this for free on Tubi, though it was more like I left it on while I did things around the house. At more than 3.5 hours long, this story is extremely repetitive and boring, with many of the familiar tropes of 40s Hollywood thrown in. Batman and Robin are pretty basic. They really just show up and beat up the bad guys in every episode. But I actually liked Wilson's portrayal of Bruce Wayne. He's a very snooty, spoiled playboy, the perfect rich guy of the 40s, and it contrasts nicely with the brutality and violence of his Batman. This was made at a time when Bob Kane was still creating the Batman comics, so a few things from this first serial did stick around. This marks the first appearance of the Bat Cave, for example, or the Bat's Cave, as it's called. This also depicts Alfred as a proper British butler for the first time. He actually chauffeurs Batman and Robin around in a limo, which is hilarious, but he's been thin and British ever since in both comics and film. But this has none of the other familiar Batman villains or characters, not even Commissioner Gordon. This is simply the US government co-opting a popular comic book character in an attempt to spread racism and lies. And it's pretty sad in my opinion. See you at the movies. I continued my Bat journey with Batman and Robin, the second 40s serial produced by Columbia. This was much better than the first one, with way less racism, more familiar characters, and a kind of better story. Though this format is just so repetitive and formulaic, it is difficult to get through all of these episodes, as they are very similar in structure. The villain in this one is the Wizard, which is a troubling name for the time, and he's built a device that allows him to control any machine within a 50-mile radius, so basically every vehicle, which includes trains, planes, and submarines, which is kind of fun. I have to say, the costumes in this are not great. Batman looks like some kind of gothic fox, and Robin is basically wearing a Lone Ranger mask, and he has way too much product in his hair. But we do have Commissioner Gordon and Vicky Vale, so it was very cool to see early interpretations of those characters. I'd say Batman and Robin is actually a pretty fun foray into 40s action cinema. We've got lots of people being tied to chairs, some awesomely awkward fight scenes, and towards the end, a lot of very cool special effects as the Wizard kind of turns into the Invisible Man, basically. So if you want to watch some 1940s Batman adventures, this is the one to watch. You can stream it for free on Tubi. Stay away from the earlier one for sure. See you at the movies.
Soon, very soon, Batman and I will be catapulting right out of your TV sets and onto your theater screens.
That's right, Robin. Our first full-length motion picture feature in color opens a whole new world of thrills.
I watched what I think of as Batman the movie because, of course, I grew up with this iconic TV show already well established in pop culture. This is the Batman of my childhood, and I just love Adam West's inimitable take on this character, though his Batman and Bruce Wayne are pretty similar, I'd say. He doesn't even really change his voice, but hey, what a voice it is. Apparently, the original pitch was to shoot the movie first in order to promote the TV show, but producers couldn't get a green light on a feature until the show proved to be successful. So this came out the summer after season 1. And I think that's a good thing. This film draws on an entire season of sets, costumes, character development, and actor experience. Everyone involved was firing on all cylinders in making this film. It brings together all the awesome Batman villains uniquely portrayed by the series: the Joker, Riddler, Catwoman, and Penguin, my particular favorite, as he's pretty integral to the plot, actually. But all of these performances really are great. Everyone fully committed to the bit. I was surprised at how much I truly laughed out loud watching Batman. Its 60s style of wackiness weaves in and out of the narrative, and there are some truly great lines throughout. If you haven't seen it in a while, I highly recommend it. See you at the movies.
I have given a name to my pain.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
I watched Tim Burton's Batman, just a full-on nostalgia injection for me, as this film was a very important part of my teenage years. This was the first movie I went to see in the theaters with just my friends. No parents, just a rowdy bunch of 13-year-olds busing to the mall by themselves to see Batman. It was also the first movie my family ever owned on VHS. Yes, we were late to the game, but we just didn't buy a lot of VHS tapes. Mostly we rented. But my dad liked this movie enough to buy it. As a result, I probably watched Batman at least once a week for a year. year, 2 years maybe. I don't know. Whenever my brothers and I were bored, we just put on Batman and start reciting the lines word for word. And I still know every line of this movie by heart. This is such a different take on Batman from what we'd seen before. Really, this was Hollywood taking the characters seriously for the first time. These were big movie stars playing these comic book roles under an incredibly talented, hot young director in Burton, and it all comes together so well. It's a darker, more serious Batman, but with hilarious comedy and nods to the comics and TV series sprinkled throughout. This movie changed everything about Batman, about summer blockbusters. Heck, it changed everything about Hollywood. It's an important film and one of my all-time favorites. See you at the movies.
You missed.
I watched Batman Returns, which really is the perfect sequel to Tim Burton's 1989 masterpiece. This film expands Burton's Batman universe in so many cool ways. It presents a darker, more twisted version of Gotham City, populated with a cast of truly deplorable and memorable characters. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman and Danny DeVito as Penguin bring so much to this film, both delivering perfect performances, creating new and truly unique takes on these decade-old characters. Christopher Walken is also excellent as Max Schreck. He's the perfect comic book villain, motivated only by greed and his own self-interests. His plan is to create a fake power plant to steal energy from Gotham. Like, no one's gonna notice that. This is a much more compelling story than the first film. You've got Penguin coming to terms with his troubled family history. Catwoman is struggling with her self-confidence at work. Then there's Shrek trying to install Penguin as mayor so he can get away with whatever he wants. And Batman admittedly not doing much in the middle of all of this. Then, of course, there's also the incredible set design and costume design and Danny Elfman's epic score. If Tim Burton's first Batman film finally did the character justice on the big screen, Batman Returns established him as a Hollywood franchise. See you at the movies.
What is it about the wrong kind of man?
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
Next up was Batman Forever, which wasn't as bad as I remember it being, but certainly this marked a downward trend for the franchise. And I don't fully blame director Joel Schumacher for that. He was just trying to do something different, something that evoked the classic Batman of his youth while still feeling like a modern movie. And this film certainly does that. But I think what people really liked about the first two Tim Burton films was their realism, their grittiness. They don't feel like comic book films, while this one absolutely does. You've got your bright neon sets, overly creative costumes, multiple costume changes, and wildly over-the-top performances from both Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. Those two are the worst part of this movie. I mean, Carrey will occasionally get a begrudging laugh out of me, but for the most part, I find them both very annoying. Val Kilmer is also pretty bland, both as Batman and Bruce Wayne, and I don't love Nicole Kidman in this either. They have no chemistry as a couple. Not even a young, amped-up Chris O'Donnell can save this. I also find him annoying, and he's pretty awkwardly jammed into the story. The only part of Batman Forever that I really liked is the Riddler's plot to sell mind control devices disguised as 3D TVs. That's a very Batman villain-esque plot, but even then, it's so vague what this machine actually does to people that it quickly loses all meaning. I know this isn't the worst of this series, but it's not the best either. See you at the movies.
My name is Freeze. Learn it well, for it's the chilling sound of your doom.
All right, I've been putting this off long enough. I finally watched Batman and Robin, long regarded as the worst of this series, in hopes of finding something good in this spectacular spectacle. The first thing I realized while watching it is that this movie is really for kids, plain and simple. That's the only explanation I can come up with for the campy dialogue, the jarring costume changes, and of course the ridiculous plot. This whole Batman and Robin competing over Poison Ivy because she hit them with some kind of love potion thing is probably right out of the comics, like the 1960s version of the comic. By the time this film came out, the comic books had gotten as dark as the first two films in this series, but I guess Joel Schumacher was going for something different. Okay, so if this is for kids, then it's not that bad, right? Keeping that in mind helps you get through Uma Thurman's over-the-top performance and Arnold Schwarzenegger's ridiculous puns, although he seems to be having a great time with this, but it doesn't forgive George Clooney's incredibly wooden delivery or Chris O'Donnell's just being straight up annoying. The only real positive I can find with Batman and Robin is Michael Gough, who plays Alfred in all four of these Batman films. He has some nice moments in this movie, especially with Alicia Silverstone, who's also quite refreshing at times. But Batman and Robin was, and still is, a bomb. Watch it for nostalgia or to reassure yourself that yes, it really was that bad, or just put it on for the kids. They'll probably have a great time with it. See you at the movies.
What's that? Another tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
I watched Batman Begins, which finally answered the burning question, What's a realistic way in which a man would dress up as a bat and fight crime? And as gritty and realistic as this Batman movie is meant to be, I still find these characters to be very cartoonish and one-dimensional. Christian Bale is a good Bruce Wayne and an okay Batman in this. You can tell he hasn't quite got a handle on the voice yet, but hey, that's okay. He's just starting out. Batman Begins, right? The rest of the cast in this is good as well, especially Michael Caine. He is my favorite Alfred of all time. But I find the scenes in this movie to be very disjointed. It jumps around a lot in true Christopher Nolan fashion, and that makes this difficult to follow. I really don't care about the trial of Joe Chill and the crime boss Maroni and all that corruption of Gotham stuff. That all plays out way better in the next film, and it bogs down this one. In fact, I would have cut Katie Holmes' character altogether as she does not do much in this film. They would have avoided the casting problems and just cut down on the runtime on this quite a bit. It's just too long for a Batman movie. But you can get through Batman Begins knowing what comes next. All of this is just rehearsal for one of the greatest comic book films ever made. See you at the movies.
You're Alfred, right?
That's right, sir. Any psychotic ex-boyfriends I should be aware of?
Oh, you have no idea.
I finally finished watching The Dark Knight. I say finally, not because it's not a great film. It is. It's just way too long for a Batman movie. It takes me a few sessions to get through it, and I'm not thrilled about this long Batman movie trend in general. I'll get to that. Of course, this is an amazing Batman film. Heath Ledger's performance as Joker alone elevates it to the next level. He creates a completely unique take on the character that is both chilling and hilarious. I honestly think it was a mistake to let anyone else tackle this role within 10 years of this coming out because he completely owns it. And this performance deserves room to breathe. And of course, it deserves an Oscar, which Ledger received posthumously. The rest of this film is excellent as well, although as I said, it is too long. We don't really need the side trip to Hong Kong, as cool as that sequence is. And I feel like, again, there's too much focus on the court side of things. Batman was never about that. And honestly, every time we cut away from the Joker, I'm just thinking about when we're going to see him again. This is a great time to mention Hans Zimmer's incredible score. It makes the entire film so much more epic, better than Batman Begins. And this is one of my favorite film scores of all time. But I'm not thrilled about what's coming next in this series. Maybe that's why it took me so long to get through this one. See you at the movies.
You think this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne.
I was ready to crap all over The Dark Knight Rises because I really didn't like this movie the first time I saw it in theaters. I just felt that it asked for too much suspension of disbelief from the audience and took a shortcut through a lame twist to a disappointing ending. It was nowhere near the masterpiece the previous film was, and I was massively disappointed. But this time around, I actually quite enjoyed it. Anne Hathaway in particular is a delight. I'd put her Catwoman second only to Michelle Pfeiffer. Hathaway really captures the character well and kicks ass. You really don't know what she's going to do next, and that is Catwoman. I also like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He brings a lot of earnestness to the franchise, and his character actually serves the plot well. And I think this might be Gary Oldman's best performance of the trilogy. He really is excellent here. And in the end, it is Commissioner Gordon who saves the day. But I still don't love Bane, to be honest. I find the voice silly and almost everything he does ridiculous, and ultimately, none of it matters. The Dark Knight trilogy overall, I think, is a high point for the Batman franchise. It was financially successful, critically acclaimed, and the fans loved it. It was so good I felt like we should leave this character alone for a while. But obviously, Hollywood did not agree with me. See you at the movies.
She with you?
Oh, sure you do.
I continued my bad journey with Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, which I absolutely hated the first time I saw it. But honestly, I had a really bad attitude about the entire DCEU at this point. It all felt very rushed to me, and it paled by comparison to the glorious MCU. But watching it this time around, I found some redeeming qualities that I hadn't picked up on before. And listen, I'll just say it. Affleck is a bomb as Batman, yo. I actually love all the Batman scenes in this film. I love the new costume, the Batmobile and Batwing are awesome. Jeremy Irons makes an excellent Alfred. And if this had been a standalone Batman movie, it would definitely be high up on my list. Unfortunately, it's the Superman elements that bring this one down. I absolutely hate Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. I admire him for trying something new, but it does not work. And the first 40 minutes of this film are so slow. It spends so much time trying to find a plausible reason for these two superheroes to fight each other. And then when they actually do, it's only for a few minutes. I will say this about the infamous Martha scene. Ben Affleck is giving his all here. He's doing a great job of portraying a middle-aged man who's still deeply traumatized by the loss of his parents. This is probably the deepest we've ever seen into Batman's psyche, and Affleck is making the best of a bad situation here. As far as the whole Doomsday thing goes, that all feels tacked on. It's great to see Wonder Woman, of course, and this movie does do a good job of setting up Justice League, but Doomsday is a meaningless monster in my opinion, and this movie takes way too long to end. See you at the movies.
We live in a society where honor is a distant memory. Isn't that right, Batman?
The next Bat appearance was Justice League, and since the Walmart bin actually gave me the Snyder Cut, I felt compelled to watch it. I'd only ever seen the theatrical version when it first came out and wasn't very blown away by it. As I said before, I wasn't the biggest fan of the DCEU, and this just seemed like another dark, murkily CGI'd slow-mo slugfest. I just wasn't interested. But I'm happy to say the Snyder Cut vastly improves this movie in a couple of ways. Yes, it is a much longer film at 4+ hours, but it is divided into 6 parts and an epilogue, which make for excellent stop points. Basically, I just stopped the movie at the beginning of the next part, and this became a mini-series for me, much more consumable, and so I watched this every day over the course of a week. I found the story to be better, I became more invested in the characters, I actually cared about Cyborg this time, and I enjoyed the big climactic battle much more, helped along by vastly improved CGI. This is a much better superhero team movie that gives each character the right amount of screen time and brings them all together awesomely at the end. I don't know what to think about the epilogue. The post-apocalyptic scene is probably the best in the whole movie, but it doesn't really mean anything. Seems to me that Snyder just wanted to shoot every cool scene idea he came up with, even if it didn't really fit in the plot. But I still love Batfleck, and I have to say that he is in the running for my favorite Batman with just one left to go. See you at the movies.
The hell are you supposed to be? Vengeance.
I finally completed my Bat quest with The Batman, the Caped Crusader's most recent film adventure, and I'll start by saying that I wasn't really excited for this movie when it first came out. Another Batman movie, I thought, and it's 3 hours long, forget it. I didn't even see it until way after it came out, and even then I was like in a bad mood or something, so I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of it. Too soon, I thought. And so I kind of dismissed this whole thing. But now, after watching all of the other iterations of Batman over the last few months, I actually think that this is the best Batman movie to date. It's the most realistic and relevant to the time in which it was released, and it's a well-written, straight-ahead script with no flashbacks or origin stories or any of that crap we usually see. Robert Pattinson is a good modern-day Batman, very tech-savvy with all kinds of cool toys to take out criminals. I also thought Paul Dano's Riddler felt very relevant, much like the real online hacker groups we see all over the world. This is a nice, contained story. It all takes place in Gotham, and Gotham looks amazing, by the way. It really is its own character in this movie. There are no side trips around the world or anything like that, and this feels like Batman is taking on realistic city crime. It's street gangs, the mob, corrupt city officials. These are all things that we see in everyday life. I love how the weirdness of the Batman is emphasized through this normalcy. He is very much not normal, and that is apparent right away. Really, the only bad thing I can say about the Batman is that it is too long. I mean, it doesn't feel like 3 hours, but there's no reason for it to be that length, and I just generally hate this Hollywood trend. So what do you think? Is this the best Batman movie, or do you have a favorite from back in the day? Let me know in the comments below. See you at the movies.